السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سيداتي وسادتي الكرام، نود أن نرحب بجميع ضيوفنا وعملائنا في هذه الندوة، ونتمنى لهم ليلة مليئة بالمعرفة. كما نود أن نشكر رئيس وأعضاء مجلس إدارة بنك الدوحة والإدارة التنفيذية على استضافتهم وتنظيمهم لهذه الندوة. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At the beginning, we would like to welcome all of our distinguished guests and customers to this knowledge-sharing seminar, and we would like to thank His Excellency the Chairman, the Board of Directors, and the Executive Management of Doha Bank for hosting and organizing this seminar. هذه الندوة تضم العديد من الخبرات من أنحاء العالم لكي يشاركونا خبراتهم وإنجازاتهم بتوجيه من الدكتور سيثا رمان الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة بنك الدوحة. This knowledge-sharing session has various well-known expertise from around the world who came to share with us their knowledge and experiences. الآن سوف نقوم بتقديم نبذة عن رئيس الندوة الدكتور سيثا رمان الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة بنك الدوحة. يتمتع الدكتور سيثا رمان بخبرة تزيد عن 3 عقود في مجال المصرف، تكنولوجيا المعلومات والاستشارات. في شهر مايو من 2012 قامت جامعة واشنطن بمنح الدكتور سيثا رمان درجة الدكتوراه الفخرية في القانون، تقديرا لمساهمته القيمة والفريدة على المجتمع السعيد المصرفي وإدارة المعرفة والمسؤولية الاجتماعية للشركات والحوكمة. وفي شهر يونيو من عام 2012 قامت الجامعة الأوروبية بدورها بمنح درجة الدكتوراه الفخرية خلال تكريما له مقابل عطاءاته الرائعة في مجال الحوكمة العالمية والمسؤولية الاجتماعية. We would like to start by introducing our moderator for this seminar. Dr. Sita Rahman, Chief Executive Officer of Doha Bank, has more than 3 decades of experiences in banking, informational technology, and consultancy. In May 2012, he was endowed with the honorary degrees, Doctors in Law, by the Washington College for his unique and valuable contributions to the society in the fields of banking, knowledge management, corporate social responsibilities, and governance. In June 2012, he was endowed with the titles Doctor of Honorary Cause from the European University for his unique and valuable contributions to the global governance and social responsibilities. الآن فنستمع إلى كلمة الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة بنك الدوحة الدكتور سيثا رمان. Let's welcome Dr. Sita Rahman, Group CEO of Doha Bank.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and privilege to welcome you all at another knowledge sharing session. A couple of minutes before I was interviewed by the global financial media channel CNBC. They had a set of questions which is interesting. I think I should share it across. He asked me a question. Is the global economy is recovering? Is the region is financially stable? Is Kuwait as an economy which is producing oil and gas has been reporting huge surplus? What does it mean in terms of development plan? What about the real estate? What about the urbanization? What sort of cross-border opportunity you see between Qatar and the Gulf states and Kuwait, how do you foresee the global economic trend and the financial stability? Well, these questions are worth answering. That's precisely the reason why we have set in a mission today. With the changing face of the world, changing face of the financial crisis, again, new world order setting new opportunities, it is only fair public financial institutions like Doha Bank come and share their views, showcase the opportunities, clarify in transparent terms the market momentum, making sure bankers are profoundly sharing the knowledge to ensure right kind of partnership is built. Last month was a very hectic month for me. The beginning of the month, I was in Australia. On 3rd of April, we inaugurated our 12th operation in Sydney. When I was staying in Sydney, the ABC television, which is in my website, you can have a look at it, asked me a question. Oil price is tumbling. The gold is tumbling. What is this world is all about? I said, the real economies are going to perform. Financial economies have to convert as real. I thought I answered the question. I came back to Berlin. Qatar Investment Forum hosted a big reception on 15th. Me and my wife was there in Frankfurt and Berlin. That was a day, 15th of April, we had extraordinary downturn. The gold nosedived almost 10%. China was slowing down, the emerging market was slowing down, and clearly we have seen the reflection on the gold. And oil was, the Brent was quoting less than 100, the WTI was less than 90. Over 10%, over $120 is a reduction in the ounce of gold. The CNBC interviewed me in Brendan's Gate. What do you think of the changing dynamics now? The commodity-driven economies are going to slow down. I said, what was started as a liquidity crisis has changed as a funding crisis. The funding crisis moved to solvency crisis, and now it has become a sovereign crisis. Nothing has changed in the world in the last 4.5 years. Global governance is at stake. The real economies are here to make sure they perform. Financial economies are there to convert. Unless that change conspicuously, visibly accepted by people power, the world is not going to change. The common man is not going to get the value advantage. You're not going to get the gross welfare to the mass. That's the dictum. Bankers are no more trusted. Trust me. When I say this, I have, again, an illustration to make. After finishing Berlin, I reached Barcelona. I'm a visiting faculty in European University. That is the 40th anniversary of European University was scheduled on 20th. So I was there. To make use of my productive time, generally I share knowledge sharing workshop like this. Today I met my relationship, and tonight I'm showcasing what we know as bankers. I was asked to run a workshop for 3.5 hours. I do regularly for US as well as European universities. I asked the members, almost 200 students, MBA students were there. I asked them, how many of you wants to become bankers? No response. Absolutely no response. How many of you wants to work in JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley? Again, Deutsche, Citi. No response. One student stood up. He said, Doctor, where do you live? I know that you live in Qatar. I'm asking you, which hotel in Barcelona, Spain, you live? I said, Arts Hotel, Ritz-Carlton. Next to you, there is a casino. Today, whether you go and play, or today the regulators are playing in Cyprus, there's no difference. The bankers are today casino makers, shadow banking. He said we lose trust in the public financial system. Look at the young minds, what they try to interpret with the change in face of the world. This is real. This is not a fiction. That's real. Today, global governance is at stake unless you set in a universal standard in terms of accounting, valuation, securitization, setting standards which are global to make sure we live in an interconnected world, interdependent world, to set in new governance, new solutions to make sure the common man is protected, consumer is protected, the world at large is still will distrust the financial institutions. What has happened in Cyprus is extraordinary. You never tax a public deposits. You set a precedent by doing this. Whether it's a private or local, the banking is always global and public. A lot at stake by taxing the common man deposits. You lose trust. Looking at a global economics, which was pronounced a week before in spring meeting in Washington, if you look at a bigger picture, the global economy is at a downward risk. Still, the global growth is not going to be more than 3%. Advanced economies still underperforming, 1.2%. Euro technically under recession. US is costing between 2 to 2.5%, supposed to be. The quantitative easing, printing money, improving the liquidity has inflated the stock market. Every single stock market is blowing up. Dow Jones, 14% up. S&P, 12% up. NASDAQ, 8% up. UK, 9.5% up. FTSE is costing in spite of downgrading by rating agencies for the financial stability. France is again 7.5% up. 4.5% up by Germany. World over, if you look at the bigger picture, the markets are up. India is flat. China is marginally down. The financial markets are still reeling under enormous amount of pressure. And you also look at the basic breakup in terms of the Gulf states. UAE is costing not less than, both the markets, both Dubai is up almost 28%. Kuwait is up 24%. When it comes to the rest of the markets, Abu Dhabi is up 22%. Oman is up. Qatar is up. Every single market, financial markets are up. It doesn't mean the global financial recovery is in full swing. If you look at a bigger picture, Euro is going through extraordinary downturn. The monetary policy and fiscal policy is not converging. While monetary policy is centralized, fiscal policy is still decentralized. Austerity measures as well as value creations are mutually exclusive. It's not working together. And result, we have seen a technical recession. We also have reasons to believe the Asian economies, whether it's China or India, Russia or Brussels, have got their own norms. China is slowing down. It was supposed to grow 8 plus. It has now regressed to 7.7. Still, it's a good growth, but it's the economic engine of the world today. If China is slowing down, the rest of the world is slowing down as well. When America was catching cold, the rest of them sneeze. Those days are concurrent today, and the expression is right for China today. India is going through stagflation. The inflation outweighs the growth, 5.7%. And again, when it comes to Russia, Brazil, inflation outweighs the growth. That's the world we're in. In the midst, the Gulf states, $1.6 trillion breakup. It's not an ordinary mechanism. If you look at the current account surplus as a percentage of GDP, it's over 20%. It's very significant in real substance. To give the breakdown, Saudi Arabia is $745 billion. Again, UAE is $375 billion. Qatar is $193 billion. Kuwait is $177 billion, between 175 to 177, taking oil at 65. Oman should do $74 to $75 billion. Bahrain should do $24 billion. Sum it up, it will tell you the results, which runs over 20% surplus. That's not ordinary financial stability in the world. Nowhere in the world you will have this economic momentum. But you are not isolated from the global crisis. You are insulated in terms of macroeconomics, but you are not isolated from the global crisis. That's what we learned. Every single state, if you look at it, they have expansionary fiscal policy. I was expecting the budget today in Kuwait. Perhaps it will come tomorrow. Last year's budget has been good. As long as the government expenditure drives the rest of the market, you will have economic momentum in full swing. Last year's budget, if you look at it, 21 billion KD was the expenditure, while revenue was 13 plus. There was a deficit, but rightfully so. The government expenditure drives the change. Now, if you look at the Kuwait economy as a whole, it's stable and functional. In substance, as I said, GDP is 175. Inflation is 3%. Current account surplus is 40%. That's a question asked by CNBC interpreter. Almost 40% of the GDP is a current account surplus. It means scope for expenditure is there to drive the change. And again, if you look at the per capita, it's moving in the right direction, $45,000. That's a good reflection any economy. If you look at the project breakdowns, $116 billion for this fiscal year, between 13 to 14, out of which non-hydrocarbon is 61, hydrocarbon is $55 billion. $116 billion should have been the overall expenditure. That's not an ordinary expenditure. If you look at the Gulf region as a whole, that should produce not less than $377 billion US expenditure. These are disclosed budgets. If you look at the breakdowns, again, significant portion of the expenditure comes from Saudi Arabia. It said last year it spent that money. This year they have budgeted between 13 to 14, $121 billion. Kuwait is $116 billion. UAE is $62 billion. Qatar is $45 billion. And again, you have development expenditure, $8 billion from Bahrain, $24 billion from Oman, should drive the overall, the region, whether it is transport or power or water or construction. These are forces which will drive the economics of the states. The trade cycle will improve based on those economic wheels. That will drive the opportunities as well for businessmen. Liquidity is there in abundance, but the market momentum will get really triggered by the government expenditure. If you look at the project breakups, it is Silk City, is it rapid transport system, metropolitan. You have Al Zur, independent project with France, GD of Suez. And again, you have Suwaik port with southern Kuwait. You have a huge project, $2.6 billion. So there are enough to rave about to see these are going to transcend to your business model to support your cash flows and profitability and productivity. The substance is to recognize this and make the best out of it. Again, sitting across in Qatar, I can tell you, extraordinary vibration. The country is running in huge fiscal and current account surplus. Diversification across the market, in multiple markets, multiple segments, investing on the sovereign funds. Vision 2030. Every single state has been set in right kind of visions. 2030 by Qatar, 2030 by Abu Dhabi, 2020 by Saudi Arabia and Oman. So everyone has got a long-term vision and back it up with development plans as a short-term strategic initiative. That's going to drive the change for you. That's the very purpose of getting assembled today. In line with this concept and substance, we have a theme that is set in here as exchanging the visions on urban development. That's precisely the reason why we have set in right kind of speakers to get and deliver the purpose. And with me to support the purpose, Dr. Hamad Al-Asawi, the Secretary General of the Banking Union, is there. He's going to showcase the project space in the region, in Qatar, rather in Kuwait, in specific terms. Kuwait, when I looked at his presentation, is exciting. You're all going to be jumping in the seat to see this kind of opportunity you can grab. In concept, it's a substance. And again, it's not confined to the project space alone. Along with the projects, you have impediments as well. You have to get it right at the first time. The design has to be productive and positive. For me, to exhibit that kind of inputs, Stephen Gade, the PKF Technical Consult Group CEO, is here. The project is measurable, manageable in terms of risk and returns. You have to measure the risk to showcase the risk angle in terms of execution. While design is going to be showcased, execution risk needs to be measured and managed, for which I have a representative of KIO, Masood, is here, who is going to showcase the risk issues. But when you evolve, you also have to design it in such a way it's environmental safe. Safety comes in when it comes to sustainability. Whether it's water or electricity or power, you have to keep the green mission in perspective. To elucidate, Dr. Bashir from Qatar Foundation is here. And again, unless you have internal integration in terms of people, process, and technology, you will not be able to optimize the better returns, for which I have Mr. Ganesh Mohan from Boston Consultancy. Each one of them is going to take 10 to 15 minutes maximum. And every session, we'll break it up for one question. And finally, we'll interact before we depart for dinner. That's the format. That's going to be interesting. I'm sure you're all going to enjoy as much as I do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Sitaraman. فلنلقي الضوء على أول متحدث لدينا الدكتور حمد الحساوي، وهو أمين عام اتحاد مصارف الكويت، ولديه مسيرة مهنية طويلة ومتميزة، حيث عمل خلالها في العديد من المؤسسات الرائدة مثل اتحاد مصارف الكويت، معهد الكويت للأبحاث العلمية، شركة الخليج القابضة، شركة كامكو، مؤسسة الخليج للاستثمار، ووزارة الدفاع، وحيث لعب دورا استراتيجيا هاما كمستشار العديد من الصفات الهامة، بالإضافة إلى دعمه وسعيه لتطبيق أفضل الممارسات في قطاع الخدمات المالية والمصرفية. Let us highlight our first speaker, Dr. Hamad Al-Hisawi, is the Secretary General of the Kuwait Banking Association and has had a long and illustrious career working with the leading organizations such as the Kuwait Banking Association, Al Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, Gulf Holding Company, Camco, Gulf Investment Corporation, and Ministry of Defense, where he has fulfilled key strategic role as a consultant on a major transaction as well as advocate the implementation and adopt of best practice in the financial service industry. Please welcome with me Dr. Hamad Al-Hisawi. تعريفا بمحدثنا التالي لهذه الندوة، السيد غانيش موهان، وهو شريك وعضو منتدب في فرع أبو ظبي لمجموعة بوسطن الاستشارية، وهو عضو أساسي في مجموعة المؤسسات المالية. وعمل السيد غانيش قبل انضمامه إلى مجموعة بوسطن في إحدى شركات المشروبات الغازية في مومباي، وقد عمل سيادته من قبل في المكتب التابع للمجموعة في كل من دالاس، لشبون، نيو دلهي ومومباي. Our second speaker for the night, Mr. Ganesh Mohan, who is a partner and the managing director at the Abu Dhabi office of the Boston Consulting Group. He is a core member of the Financial Institute Practice Group. Ganesh has worked previously in the Dallas, Lisbon, New Delhi, and Mumbai offices of the firm, and bringing with him significant international consulting experiences. Please welcome with me Mr. Ganesh. المتحدث الثالث لدينا في هذه الأمسية يتولى السيد سيفين غادا رئيس مجموعة شركات PKF لتكنولوجيا المعلومات، ويتمتع بخبرة كبيرة في قطاع الفنادق، السياحة، وتطوير العقارات، ويحمل درجة علمية في مجال إدارة الفنادق العالمية من جامعة سوري في المملكة المتحدة، ودبلوم إدارة الفنادق من ألمانيا. ويتمتع السيد سيفين بخبرة تصل في مجملها إلى 15 عاما في مجال الفنادق، وبالتحديد في إدارة الفنادق والشركات الكبرى. كما لديه خبرة تصل إلى 17 عاما في مجال الاستشارات، تولى عدة مناصب استشارية رئيسية، وعمل في أكثر من 40 بلدا، ويجيد 6 لغات بدرجات مختلفة. وانتخب زميلا في عام 2008 في المعهد التدريب الدولي للسياحة والفندقة في المملكة المتحدة بتقدير إنجازاته. ونظرا لخبرته الطويلة في مجال تقديم الاستشارات في كل من قطاع العقارات والسياحة والمواصلات والسفر والفندقة وقطاع التجزئة، قام السيد سيفين بتأسيس 5 مكاتب لتقديم خدمات استشارية والتدريب في مجالات العقارات والبرامج التدريبية وبرامج السياحة والترفيه لصالح شركات ديلويت اند تاتش، أرنست اند يونغ، بالإضافة إلى شركاته الخاصة وشركة الشرق الأوسط للاستشارات الاستراتيجية، وذلك قبل انضمامه إلى مجموعة PKF لتكنولوجيا المعلومات. As for our third speaker of the night, Mr. Sven Gada is the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Consulting House, who are business advisors to the hotel and property sector. Mr. Sven is a German national and heads up the PKF TCH group of companies with an extensive background in hospitality, tourism, real estate development. He combines 15 years of experiences and industry experience in hotel management with blue chip companies and 17 years of advisory background into very senior advisory capabilities. He has worked in 40 countries and speaks 6 languages. He has gained extensive experience in advising all segments of the real estate, tourism, transport, travel, hospitality, and retail industries. Sven worked with Deloitte & Touch, Ernst & Young, and Middle East Strategy Advisors before PKF TCH. Please welcome with me Mr. Sven Gada. والآن يسرني أن أقدم لديكم المتحدث الرابع في هذه الندوة، السيد مسعود بفتي، وهو أحد المتخصصين البارزين في مجال الإنشاءات، وهو عضو رئيسي في قسم الدولة لشركة كيو العالمية الاستشارية، ويشغل حاليا منصب المنسق الرئيسي ومخاطر وفرص الأعمال في دائرة الرقابة على المشاريع في الشركة. ويمتلك السيد بفتي خبرة تزيد عن 17 عاما في مجال المشاريع الإنشاءات الكبرى، تولى إدارة العديد من المشاريع الهامة مثل مشاريع تطوير المدن، مشاريع متعددة الاستخدام، الفنادق، مراكز الرعاية الصحية والمستشفيات، مراكز التسوق، المباني التجارية، المشاريع السكنية والمعاهد التعليمية. Our next speaker, Mr. Masoud Bafti, who is a postgraduate construction professional and a senior member of the QS PMCM International Division. He is currently a senior risk and opportunity facilitator within the project control department. With over 27 years of experience covering the full spectrum of major construction projects, he has worked on city development, mixed-use development, hotel, healthcare, hospitals, commercial building, resident projects, educational institutes, and all sectors. Please welcome with me Mr. Masoud Bafti. أخيرا وليس آخرا نقدم لكم الدكتور الصادق عوض بشير، وهو أحد المتخصصين البارزين في مجال الاستدامة البيئية، ويتمتع بخبرة كبيرة في علم وبيئة الطيور، وقام بنشر أكثر من 60 ورقة علمية وتقنية حول الحفاظ على البيئة وحمايتها، ولقت منشوراته إشادة كبيرة على مستوى العالم. نظرا لخبرته الطويلة فهو يعد من أهم المستشارين للمؤسسات الحكومية وغير الحكومية المعنية بأحد من آثار عمليات التطوير العمراني. Last but not least, Dr. Sadiq Awad al-Bashir specialized in the environment sustainability as an authority in the ornithology and bird ecology. He has published over 60 scientific and technical papers on conservation and protection of the environment in global recognized published and he has more than 25 years of experiences. Due to his extensive experiences, he is a respected consultant to government and semi-government bodies. Please welcome with me Dr. Al-Bashir. We would like to request Dr. Sita Rahman to join us to the podium to start the panel, please.
This is the panel, a light panel. Without much ado, let me have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Asawi to the podium, please.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. C. Thank you very much. And I hope that I would be giving some highlights on the building the dream, as we call it here in Kuwait nowadays, the Silk City or Al Harir City. In this quick presentation, we would like to bring to your attention the importance of the mega real estate projects by demonstrating their importance to the country. The major drivers of the mega real estate projects in Kuwait and listing the major mega real estate projects. The rest of the presentation is going to be talking about the establishment of Al Harir City. To start with, I would like just to bring your attention to the importance of the real estate sector in Kuwait. As a percentage of the non-oil GDP, the real estate sector is among the leading sectors in Kuwait. Non-oil sector GDP after community, social and personal services and financial institutions. The benefits of mega real estate projects are many, and we can summarize them as follows. They would improve the competitiveness of the overall economy by paving the way for more investments in different sectors. Due to the close linkage between the real estate sectors and other sectors in the economy, such as construction and constructing material industry, electricity, water, gas, and so on. It will also expand the absorptive capacity of the country. It would create new jobs and increase employment levels, as the real estate sector is a labor-intensive sector, and the expansion of this sector leads to high demand for labor of different specialization. It also increased the value added in the overall economy. It increased the rates of economic growth in the overall economy by activating the employment of different sectors within that economy. And finally, improves the overall welfare of the Kuwaiti society. Ladies and gentlemen, the main drivers of the mega real estate projects in Kuwait has never been in a situation that dictates the importance of the establishment of many mega real estate projects like today. The main drivers for the demand of mega real estate projects in Kuwait can be summarized also as follows. The structural disequilibrium of the housing sector in Kuwait, lack of equilibrium between the supply of houses and demand has resulted in a widening gap between demand and supply in the housing market, causing houses prices to fly to unaffordable levels for the majority of the Kuwaiti citizens. The available data that we get from the Public Authority for Housing Welfare shows that till 2013, there are over 100,000 housing applications to the authority that are not satisfied yet. This number of new applicants is expected to reach about 300,000 by 2030, which means that about 20 years from now, the Public Authority for Housing Welfare is assumed to supply 400,000 new houses in Kuwait. Given these estimates, the expected supply of houses in the future by the public authority, it is clear that it will not be able to meet such a demand. Take into account the current performance rates of the public authority, and also looking at the huge gap that we can see, it will be an impossible mission. Mega real estate projects such as Al Hariri City are very essential in balancing the supply and demand in the local housing sector. Secondly, we have high population growth, and it is good to hear that we are turning to roughly 3.68 million in Kuwait by 2011. However, we're going to be expanding to 4 million, 4.5 million to be exact, by 2018. That means an average of 2.79%, one of the highest in the world. So high population growth would continue to put pressure on the local real estate sector here in Kuwait and may cause several bottlenecks in the economy. As a result, long-term estimates of the population in Kuwait, Kuwaitis and non-Kuwaitis, are expected to reach 6 million in 2030, about double the current population size. Third, the economic growth. We see that Kuwait currently is scoring high rates of economic growth as the country is supported by higher oil prices. As to the IMF estimates, the gross domestic product of Kuwait GDP is 44.4 billion in 2011, and it is expected that Kuwait GDP to reach 56 billion by 2018. Fourth, abundance of liquidity, which is a reflection of high per capita income in Kuwait by world standards. According to IMF, income per capita in Kuwait is estimated at roughly 43,000 in 2011, and it's expected to reach 45,000 roughly in 2018. Saving rates are expected to be high given these per capita levels. According to the Central Bank of Kuwait, different deposits in Kuwaiti banks reached 47 billion by end of 2012 compared to 26.9 billion in 2006. All these figures support the high demand for housing in Kuwait. There is great opportunities in such a case that we have to capture in this economy. And the private sector, in my opinion, has to play a very eminent role in conducting the development of such projects. We are enjoying relatively low inflation rates as well as low interest rates in this country. I will take you quickly over some of the projects that we have as mega projects, which I would like to see before I turn 70. Shadadiya University Campus, a very interesting project that I heard about first before I started my bachelor degree, which was almost 25, 30 years ago. The Khiran Residential City, which will offer roughly 36,000 residential units. Sabah Al Ahmed Future City, which will give us roughly 10,000 housing units. Mutla residential area, which also comprises of 18,000 residential units. And the list goes on and on with all those mega projects that I would like to see, as all other Kuwaitis would like to see. We have Jabr Al Ahmed Residential City, roughly 5,000 residential units, and North-South Slabikhat Residential City, roughly 1,700 houses. There is also 3,500 residential units in Saad Al Abdallah residential city. What I would like to talk about is why do we need a mega real estate project to cover a new city, such as the Dream City or Al Harir City. This project is a very important project for Kuwait because in 2008, Kuwaiti government had approved the biggest real estate project that will be allocated in Sabbiya area, northern of Kuwait. The city will span over 250 square kilometers and will include 30 communities grouped into 4 districts. We will have finance city, leisure city, ecological city, and educational city and culture city. It will include as well Olympic Stadium, residence, hotels, and retail facilities. Around 450,000 new jobs will be created. The most iconic development within Finance City will be the 250-story Burj Mubarak Al Kabir, which is intended to become the tallest structure on earth. Once completed in 2023, Silk City or Al Harir City will be transformed into new urban center for 750,000 residents in over 175,000 residential units. The city needs more than 10 years to be completed, and it needs more than a total investment cost of 25 billion KD in direct investments only. Why do we need Al Harir City? Why do you believe that there are advantages for such projects? The current location of Al Harir City will enhance the ability of Kuwait to be an attractive location in the center of Asia region due to its neighborhood to both Iraq and Iran, and the diversity of the project which will be established in the city. This way, it will help Kuwait in putting its vision to turn into the long-waited for financial and trade hub. The other element is that Al Harir City will also help Kuwait to deal with the housing bottlenecks by allowing it to build a good number of new houses, enough to host more than 700,000 inhabitants. In looking at the role of the private sector, as you probably have been monitoring the development plan of Kuwait, which calls for a real and serious partnership between the private sector and the government, it has been unfortunately not that efficient. We look forward to see more participation, more invitation from the government to the private sector to play its expected role. The establishment of the mega project will require the private sector to be called to participate. There are many banks that have high liquidity, and there are so many construction companies and investment companies, real estate investment companies, that have surplus of cash that can be employed. As a result, I believe that it is necessary to call on the private sector to be involved in the construction of such projects. Banks also will be invited to provide the private sector share in such projects and finance. It is assumed that Kuwaiti banks will be invited to provide the required finance for these projects and improve the financial capacity of participating in the private sector companies. The city can also be built under the PPP system, where the public, the government, and the private sector can really work together in a real partnership to be able to bring this dream to reality. Thank you very much. I wish that in our lifetime we would see such a city very soon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, give him a big hand, Dr. Hamad Al-Asawi. Very interesting, very exciting makeup in terms of residential accommodations. Is there going to be a population explosion as well? Do you foresee how the population trend is going to move?
I believe that the population has grown dramatically in Kuwait. In less than 20 years, we moved from below 2 million until today, we're looking at 3.65 roughly. In less than 5 years, we're going to be going to 4 million.
Yes.
I think that growth, that increase in the population is healthy to start with, yet we need the infrastructure to be able to support such increment that will definitely face greater problems with traffic, with lack of residential areas, and services that might affect the whole economy instead of enticing it to expand and flourish.
This is going to have a stimulating impact in terms of power, water, rest of the infrastructure alignment as well. Ladies and gentlemen, one question to Dr. Hamad. Yes, please. This gentleman, can you pass on the mic? Ashok? Yeah. Just one question for each session. Then we'll have final question and answer session as well. John, please.
Good evening. My question about this Al Harir city, what is the area which is going to be built on, and what's the total population which is going to be residing in that particular high-rising building? Thank you.
The estimated area is roughly 250 square kilometers. This whole available area. It is anticipated that it will have roughly 700,000 in terms of population.
So you're suggesting some more traffic jams?
I'm really suggesting that we pull part of the city from here and create a complete new city to be sustained with all the facilities and services and the bridge from Kuwait to Sabia, as well as create an airport and create all the possibilities for proper transportation system that will make ease for people to go from one area to the other. Kuwait is a very closed culture, very family type culture, and one of the issues that we're having today is that a lot of the young population do not want to leave their old houses or their parents' houses and move to further away from them. We need to work on this culture issue. The government, the private sector need to market the concept of creating new cities and how important it is to develop such a city that will be able to provide you with all these facilities. It will take time to change that attitude and to change the behavior of the people in the country, but without making the infrastructure and starting that, it will continue to be a difficult thing to do here now in Kuwait.
So you expect Kuwaitis to accept to live on a high-rising housing?
Of course, Kuwaitis will live in high rises, especially the young population. They would like to have all the facilities. They would like to have nice view. They would like to have the surfaces next to them. It will be very difficult for a Kuwaiti to give him a property that is 30, 40, or 50, or 60 kilometers away from the center and ask him to go and do some government paper that he has to drive, back and forth, and, never gets done. And while if you create a complete city and provide the services within, it will facilitate, and especially the new generation, they would like to see this kind of new advanced smart buildings, providing them with all the services and entertainment. I can see the change in the population. People in my age used to enjoy certain games and certain entertainment services. The current age, They like things that does not require lands and require a lot of space as we used to. We used to have a soccer field next to every house in Kuwait. Nowadays, they care to work with or play with their mobiles more and iPhones rather than playing soccer or getting exercised.
Interesting. When I saw the picture in Al Hariri city, I thought for a minute it was Burj Khalifa. What's the...
This is one of the products of the city, which is basically supposed to be the tallest building on earth. It's called Mubarak al-Kabir.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. Any more questions for Dr. Azad? Keep it in store. Let's go for the next speaker. Next speaker is going to highlight the planning required. The technical design needs to be perfect. Get it right at the first time. You can execute a project and redesign it. The cost will escalate. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure it's professionally perfect. It's designed well to deliver the objectives. To elucidate further, I have the group CEO of PKF Consulting, Sivan Gade. Sivan, it's your turn. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a big hand.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you. I'm very pleased to be here tonight and to see so many of you. I gather there is a lot of interest in real estate, and having heard from Dr. Hamad just now what is about to come, that doesn't surprise me at all. Can I just take the opportunity to thank our hosts as well for a very, very impressive event and a very nice environment and very well organized by your entire team. Thank you very much. I have the pleasure to move from mega projects to projects, if I may call it that. Although what I am about to talk about does apply to anything from a single hotel, and we've even done it to 36 square kilometers of real estate mixed-use development. So it doesn't really change with size of projects. And it's a process, a philosophy, which we call business-led design. It's very close to my heart. My team spent the last 10 years trying to perfect this and develop it further. Just very briefly, by means of introduction, many of you may know PKF as an audit brand. I think it's number 10 in the world at the moment. We are not auditors. We are purely real estate, hospitality, and tourism experts. Everybody in the team has worked in those industries, and that's all we do, just advising the business angle in these industries. And we do that to any stage of the project lifecycle, based on a very senior team. And that is really what we're all about. We're trying to make sure that there is decades and decades of expertise rather than lots of analysts, to work very closely with the projects and the people who actually own them. And one of the core values, as you see here in red, is business-led design. So let's move on to what that actually means. I will have a few case studies for you as we go along. I've deliberately picked some smaller ones because it is very easy to get dazzled with mega projects, and we all work in them, live with them, but it's actually something that is very close to home as well. You may be surprised by what I'm about to talk to you about, because really, it's common sense. Very simple. Yet, what you see on the right-hand side, the opposite, design-led business, in our experience and based on the statistics and research we work on, more than 60% of all real estate development projects in the region are still design-led business. They start with something like, I have an idea, I have a piece of land, I want to invest some money in real estate. And the next thing that happens is let's go planning. Let's find an architect, a master planner, a designer, and let's design. You will all remember during the good old days, things like Cityscape, full of models, videos, fly-throughs, fantastic things. Unfortunately, the one or the two things that were ignored many, many times were the end users living or visiting those projects and the business case. And only further down the route, somebody suddenly said, Are we going to make money with this? Is this actually going to pay back? So the design brief came from a vision. And the component mix, especially in mixed-use projects, was very, very often not oriented on the end users. Very simple things happen from that. You will have to start again oftentimes. The designs will have to be revised. Abortive designs happen. And that is a lot of extra cost. And if you don't, the project will not bring the returns that you had in mind. So what we're doing instead is something called business-led design. We start off with a business case first. And you cannot develop a business case without looking at the people that are going to come to the project when it's finished, and they spend money on there, whether they are buying property, living in it, or just visiting. And for that, we need the highest and best use studies. We also need to look very, very closely at the actual site. What does it best lend itself for? Especially when you look at what's around it. We do something called destination programming, which I'll talk about separately in a moment, and only then do we come to that famous word called feasibility study. And we complete that process, by bringing all this together into a planning brief, and that gets handed over to the architects, master planners, and designers, who now know exactly what we're expecting to develop. Lower costs are the result. Lower aborted costs and higher returns. Very briefly, you will probably be familiar with some of these terms, but let's just make sure that these different parts of the process are at least shortly defined. A highest and best use study is all about what we should build. Destination programming goes into more detail and says, on that, within the components, which component mix will maximize the experience for the visitors and end users and the financial returns. And only when we've done that do we move on to this feasibility study. And all that will answer, all it'll tell us is, will it be viable? And the answer is one word: yes or no. You have no idea how many times we have clients coming to us saying we need a feasibility study, when actually what they are talking about is any of the other elements that you see here. And they're not looking for a yes or no answer. They're looking for the what, the which, and what are we going to tell our planners, our banks, and our architects. So it's all about emphasis. And we very strongly recommend, every time we get involved in a new project, that these things need to have the appropriate amount of time, and they have a very clear sequence. And the only reason why we're doing this is to make sure that the project is successful. Here's a case study, a small one. This is on the Seychelles. I'm deliberately moving far away. The client had already done a design for a mixed-use development on a given piece of land that they had happened to lay their hands on. And they came up with a concept of 3-star resort, 60 keys, a bit of residential, a bit of retail, a bit of everything. And when we analyzed it, it became very quickly very clear that this is not going to make any positive contribution at NPV level. So we had to do it again. And incidentally, the worst thing of this whole design was that nobody had spoken to the development people in the Seychelles, the people who actually come up with a regulatory framework. What was planned was not even allowed. So when we revisited this from a business case angle, you can see now that we have a 4-star resort with 120 keys. I don't know whether there are any hoteliers in the audience. I am by origin a hotelier. And there is no such thing as a 3-star resort with 60 rooms. 3-star hotels live on volume. Therefore, 60 rooms will never make money. So when we had revised this, the NPV had become positive. And yes, the development costs had doubled, but we also had much more actual physical volumes in terms of units on there. The interesting point, just in comparison, the abortive design cost was just under $250,000. The business-led design work and advisory was only $150,000. If you reverse those two numbers, we could have saved some money right at the beginning of a project, before even going anywhere near construction. This is based on a very detailed structure, and I will not take you through the details. I just want to demonstrate that there is a lot of structure, program behind this, and clear deliverables along the way. But let's talk about destination programming. This is where it's all about the end users that I mentioned earlier. This is about making sure that you get more visitors, staying for longer, spending more, coming back, and telling all their friends about your project, maximizing your opportunity. And for that we have to look at two dimensions, the external dimension and the internal dimension. The external dimension is all about how do we relate to our market and how do we relate to the other players in the market. If you're a tourism developer, then you even need to look a long way away because your generator markets can be thousands of kilometers away. And then we need to make sure that rather than competing with everybody else, we actually create synergy and a healthy living together environment. And then you look internally. And for this, you need to know who your target customers will be before you start doing this process, because you are trying to now identify what the components are that make people stay longer and spend more money and come back. And only half of the circles you see on the right-hand side are physical circles. Most of them are actually soft factors, such as events, entertainment components, programs. But you need to define them early on because the buildings will have to enable those functions. It is a concept borrowed from the tourism industry which we have applied to every single real estate segment by now. The other very crucial stage beyond the studies is what we call the business-led design handshake. Because we have to take all this, the business case, the destination program, the component mix, and actually bring it to those people who are going to plan and design it. And that should ideally be done in a manner, in a format, in a language that suits their approaches. And that's what the planning brief is about. And that is the conclusive part to the business-led design process, which then hands over to those who are going to actually put this into drawings, designs, maps, and so on and so forth. Just another case study. This is one hotel in the UAE. When we started looking at this in the first time round, this was, of course, an iconic, of course, a landmark, and of course, a luxury hotel. Only that the cost per key had gone up to way over $1 million, and you can see that that is a pretty sad NPV outcome. They would have lost a lot of money along the process. We went through 2 stages of redesign here. That was necessary because the process took some time and the markets kept changing. And the NPV difference was way over 160 million upwards. $1 million of design cost had been wasted. And the business-led design process was just barely $100,000. So all I'm saying, as I said earlier, common sense. All I'm saying is if we're constructing, and every construction engineer knows, you will have to do that on solid foundation stones. What we are saying, though, is that the foundation of development and design should be based on very sound information and very good business cases. And everybody who's ever built a house knows what happens when you pull out those cornerstones. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you with that thought, and I'll pass you on to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
It was wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a big hand.